So in this video, we're going to talk about creating a minimally movable character in Unity. And we're going to do this using the smallest amount of coverage for walking and running, idling, and turning that we can get away with. All right. So the idea of coverage is is how much animation you need to cover a certain range of motion that you want your character to be able to do, and have an acceptable amount of blending from one motion to the other. The more coverage you have, the more the smoother your animation will look and the less pops you'll have. But animation takes time. It is memory consuming, and so there are different ways to mitigate how much coverage you need. But for us, we're just going to use a very small amount. So to kind of decide what we want to use, the first thing we want to do is figure out how much control we want. So I'm just going to go with something very basic in this series of videos, and we're going to think about a joystick motion with an analog stick and just moving the character around the scene, and we're assuming a third-person point of view. So in this case, you can see that we're going to use the left analog stick. And so how do we map our forward and left and right motion into what we would like for our character movement? We're going to think about it not as up and down, left and right, but instead we're going to think about it as magnitude and angle. And magnitude being the amount of deflection that the stick has. Doesn't matter where it is, but the amount of deflection that the stick is generating. And the angle being in which direction is that deflection happening. With those two parameters, we can spec out a series of motions that we want to think about. And in this case, we're going to think about it like this. If we're not moving, our state is going to be idle. Now, with a little bit of deflection, we're going to blend magnitude here in the box. With a little bit of deflection and moving in this angle, in our case would be the up angle, moving up on the stick, we'll start our walk animation. And if we deflect the stick to the left or right, we're going to walk left and walk right. Now, the further that we push the stick, the greater the magnitude we get, we want to blend into a run animation. And we're going to run left and run right. And if we have no forward direction and we're just idle, we're going to do step turns. So little popping the stick left and right, we're going to blend through a series of turns that are step turns in place. And this will give us a character that can move in any direction, and even when we're still, we can turn around and start progressing in the other way. So this gives us the amount of animations that we need, 3, 6, 12 over here, and then 13. But what we're going to do is I've created a character that has a humanoid rig, so we're able to mirror some of these. So we can remove a good half of these, so 2, 4, 6, and 8 animations here. So we're going to start with this, and then we'll build out our mecanim tree, and we'll bind our joystick to it, and that'll be that. All right, so let's get started. So we're going to start here in Unity, and you'll see that I have a blank scene. And the first thing I want to do is bring my character into the scene, and so we can start playing with that. So I have a character here. It's just a little model of this dude. And if we look at the rig, you can see that it's a humanoid rig, and I've gone ahead and I've configured this rig to have the layout that we need for humanoid rigging. I also have a series of animations that I've created here that we'll bring in as we need them. So let's bring our character into the scene. We'll just drop him here, and we'll back away. And the first thing, just for my own sanity, is to make sure that my lights are going to be facing the right way for me here. And I can select this main camera and say Command-Shift-F, and it will frame it so that our preview camera is here. That's our game camera. I'll move back a little bit. There we go. And one last thing is I'm just going to create a plane in here and zero that out just so we have something a little bit nicer to look at there. Okay, so there's our character. And like I said, our character just has nothing attached to it. If we look at here, we don't have an animation controller, and we don't have any animations applied to it. You know, if I hit play, you'll see that we'll pop back to our game view, and that's that. Okay, so nothing there. All right, so the first thing we want to do is create an animation controller for this guy. Now, if we look at the character, one other thing, because my animations have the character moving forward, I don't animate in place. Apply root motion is checked here. So for the animation controller, we're going to create an Animator Controller, and we're going to call it DGJ Animate. Of course, you'll call it something much better than that. Okay, so let's take our character, and I'll drop this into here, and now we can begin applying animations. So I'm going to move this window down here. Okay, so here we are, and this is the mecanim window, and in the mecanim window we have three default states. The entry state, which is where we come into our animation, and our animation tree will be in here. And we have our exit state, which is where we pass through at the end of each needing the character to be used. And we have any state, which is just a state that allows us to transition in and out from any spot. So, you know, if you have a character that dies, it needs to get out of whatever state it's in over here, and it'll transition through the any state to the death animation, something like that. Okay, so what we want to do right off the bat is just get a really basic beginning and make sure everything's working. So I'm just going to grab my idle. I have an idle state here, my idle animation. And if we were to look at this, we can play it, and it's just me shifting weight. Okay, and so I'll take this animation and I'll drop it into here, and you'll see that we get a transition right into idle, and it's orange. This is our default state. You can change the default state anytime by right-clicking on any other animation and setting it as a default state. So now if I hit play, what you'll see is that I will be in here idling, and we can see that mecanim is moving through the idle state here. So this is good. I'm going to try to keep these videos nice and short, so I'm going to stop here and we'll move on to the next stage with the next video. But you should be able to at least get your character into a scene, drop an idle state on there, and have it run. Okay? All right, so I'll set up for the next video and see you in a bit.